The Plotcast Podcast with the Potty Plotters.
Hello and welcome back to the Potty Plotters Plotcast Podcast. This is episode 38 and I'm Julia.
And I'm Elaine and I can hear the ice cream man in the distance.
Oh, lovely. I'll have a 99, please.
Hurry
Elaine.
up then and we'll get off.
Now, Elaine, we have to move into the polytunnel today, haven't we?
We have, because it's so windy outside. I know we're going to be talking about brassicas, your brassicas in a minute, and it's nothing to do with that type of wind, but it is windy, isn't it, out now?
It is, yeah.
So if you hear any funny noises, is it you?
No, is it you?
In that case, we'll both point at Gareth and blame him. But yes, it is windy outside.
Go on, how do people get in contact with us?
Right then, are you ready for this? Now, I've been practicing, so I hope everybody's listening very carefully. Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Potty Plotters. TikTok at The Potty Plotters. Email us naughtycorner at pottyplotters.uk or check out our website pottyplotters.uk.
Oh, well done, my friend.
Thank you
well
very
done.
much,
Now,
yeah.
someone who obviously wasn't listening properly,
Yes.
we went out and did a talk this week, didn't we? And I don't know what they were expecting. I think they were expecting us to turn up with some clay and a wheel or something, because they were expecting the Potty Potters.
Yeah.
I've never done any pottery, have you?
Oh yeah, and I love it.
Oh,
Absolutely
I
love
can
it.
see
but
you behind a wheel, yeah. Yeah.
It was funny though, wasn't it? Because
Yeah.
they thought we were going to be something to do with plant pots. But we
Oh,
weren't.
yeah. And then do you remember those ones that were expecting the ploppy ploppers? I don't know what they thought we were going to do, but yeah. Anyway, so listen carefully. It is the Potty Plotters. Right then. So we've been having a chat this week with Roz Chandler, haven't we? All about flowers and growing them. And she's a flower farmer. And, the Cape gooseberries. Now, well, they're taking over everything, and we'll catch up about that later on.
Okay.
And a bit of advice about fruit bushes, Elaine.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and bragging rights for me for broccoli.
Yeah, sure,
and,
move on.
Yeah, and whatever else we can squash into the next 30 minutes.
All right, then, hurry up then, because that ice cream man, I think he's just gone round the corner.
Okay.
The Plotcast Podcast with the Potty Plotters.
Right, Elaine. Cape gooseberries. Now, there's a story behind these, isn't there?
There was, yeah, because a couple of 3 years ago, I set some, and they are dead easy to grow. And so what I did was sprinkle seeds over the top of a tray of multi-purpose compost. And then I sort of abandoned them. I wasn't that bothered. I wasn't really sure if they were going to work, but nevertheless, watered them, set them to one side. And of course, Cape gooseberries are also known as physalis, which is not a sexually transmitted disease.
Is it not?
Not at all. No, and there you go. And also known as lanterns, all kinds of things. But out of all the seeds, let me tell you, all of them germinated. I ended up potting on around 300 little tiny seedlings, thinking, well, only half will work. All of them worked.
Yeah. So what did you do?
I told everybody that they were the superfruit of that year and that they all got to have them. And so people took them away diligently, repotted them, and so the story went on. These blooming Cape gooseberries were everywhere. I did a whole raised bed full of them. And then as people tried to get past my plot, I made them take some, because they turn into little lanterns, sort of little opaque Chinese lanterns, that's what they're known as. But when you open them, inside is a bright yellow orange fruit, and it is delicious.
Oh, now I know what you mean. I always used to think they only came with, like, in posh restaurants. You know, when
they
you had a
do, yeah.
lovely dessert and they came on the side and you thought, oh, where's that come? That's
it.
very exotic,
yeah,
isn't it?
that's the one. No, they come from Sainsbury's. But all I can say is, Julia, they are so easy. But I did laugh this morning because I was going through your polytunnel. I wanted to go and see Barry's dahlias, see how he was going on. And it's fair to say that the Cape gooseberries that I made you plant, you did plant.
Yes, I only planted 3 of them, Elaine. So you gave them me, and I kept looking at them thinking, I suppose I ought to do something with them. She'll be disappointed if I've not done anything with them. And they were very, very tiny when you gave them me. And I actually thought, they won't amount to much. Anyway, they're taking over my polytunnel now. So much so, they've completely swamped 2 tomato plants and a pepper. So they're going to have to come out because they're not seeing the light at all.
No.
But the Cape gooseberries are just going mad. Now, you've told me that I have to wait, don't I, before I can harvest them?
Yes, and all you do now is you'll find that the pods that they're living in, the little fruit is living in, is bright green. Leave it until it goes like brown. But what will happen, you will notice, is that they'll drop to the floor if you don't get them early enough. It's okay because they are protected still in their little case.
Yes.
But get them as soon as they start to turn opaque. But what was dead funny was, build them up, man. I'm talking like nobody else is here now. It doesn't really matter, does it?
Well, everybody knows Bill now, don't they?
Yeah, build them up, man. And build them up, man, got me the other day. It was last Sunday, actually. He said, hey, what about them gooseberry plants you gave me? So I looked at him and I thought, I don't remember giving him any gooseberry plants. They were Cape gooseberries, so I've explained to him what he needs to do. But he was expecting gooseberries as in gooseberries, and no, they're not.
No.
They are very different.
Yes, and they taste very different. There's no prickles at all.
And they are beautiful. I think everybody should have them. I haven't got a trumpet. I haven't even got my recorder, you'll be pleased to know. But, Julia, you will take the rights. They are bragging rights for your broccoli this year.
I thank you.
Thanking you indeed, and the cauliflower. I've never seen one so big or perfect until I dropped your cauliflower. Sorry. This morning. Now then, tell us about that.
Well, you know I love the brassicas. I love brassicas to eat, so it makes sense to grow them. I know you think it's a bit of a faff with all the, pests and everything you've got to protect them from. But actually, when you grow yourself a nice head of broccoli and you can take it home, it's just lovely. And it's something that I do every year. And I think that broccoli is easier to grow than cauliflower. Cauliflower, we know, can be quite difficult. But the broccoli is... There's just a couple of conditions you really need to be aware of when you're planting anything like a broccoli plant. Is first of all, get them set in a seed tray beforehand. We always set things as plants and leave them to grow on until they've got about 4 to 6 leaves. And that's really important because I want to know that when I'm putting the broccoli in the ground, it's a nice healthy plant to start off with, because there's enough problems out there that it's going to have to deal with. Then when you plant it, make sure it's really firm into the ground. Anything where you're planting a brassica, you need to firm it in. So I use the back of my heel, and I'm quite delicate, believe it or not, because I know I'm clumsy, but I am very careful about it. Or you could use your heel of your hand to squash it in. And then I just give it a pool of water and leave it in covered netting. And that's really important, because even when you're planting it at that baby plant stage, that's only got 4 to 6 leaves, what will happen is the next day, if you come, then the birds will have had it. So you've got to allow it to grow on. But also then, of course, as it's growing, you've got all kinds of things to contend with. You've got the birds, you've got the cabbage whitefly, which will go for any brassica. Anything will have probably the rats and the squirrels, everything will have it, and the mice. So we just leave it to grow on, and it grows, I don't know, what would you say, it's like a little tree? It grows like a tree, it grows upward, and then as it forms a head, and these ones are quite big, and I think the variety that I've got here is called Iron Man. I think it was a different variety.
Hold on a moment, Julie. I've got my bag at the side.
Oh, you're going to
not believe what's in the
Have
side
you got
of
your
my
tape
bag.
measure?
I have.
Oh.
Now then, let's not talk about let's guess.
No,
let's do
men
it.
shake
Yeah,
when
then.
you get that out, don't they?
Now, is it going side to side? And that, in
Yeah.
English language, is 9.5 inches, my friend.
Yes.
Well done. Now, on the other side of the tape, it's quite small, but it's 24 centimetres.
Around. So that,
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to feed the family 2 meals at least in our house.
That's it.
Yeah. That's all they're having, broccoli. No. So the main thing to remember is when you've got the broccoli growing, you take the head off, you think about what you buy in the supermarket,
Yeah,
really.
because it looks like
Yeah.
it, except
Yeah.
3 times bigger.
Yeah, and then just cut it off at the top and leave the broccoli plant in there. And what will happen over time is that you will get heads of broccoli coming out from the side. So you'll end up with more broccoli. They won't be as big as the central one, but you'll end up with loads more. And what is interesting when we were talking this morning, because obviously with the broccoli, I planted the cauliflowers. Now that was a a really nice surprise because we'd not been on the plot for a week, and there all of a sudden there's a big cauliflower. But what surprises...
When you say big, Julia, I feel inclined.
Another massive one. Oh, here we go again. Well, that's even bigger than the broccoli.
I mean, that is a monster.
Yeah, I mean,
isn't
I could enter that in a competition, but, you know, I'd rather eat it, to be honest with you.
Then I'm going to go across that. Well, that's 8.5 inches, and in other language, it's 21.5 centimetres.
So that makes
it's a beauty.
That it is lovely, and it's nice, and it's got a solid head. But what surprises me, or I don't even know how it works, so when you cut the broccoli and you cut the head off, you end up with side shoots. When we cut the cabbage and we cut it off from the stem, and if we put a cross on it, you end up with more cabbages. But when you cut a cauliflower, you don't end up with another cauliflower if you leave the stem in, it just rots. Why is that, Elaine?
I don't know. The only thing I know about is cauliflower ears. Do they grow in there?
The Plotcast Podcast with the Potty Plotters.
Our guest this week is Roz Chandler, and she's from the Cut Flower podcast. Well, that piqued our interest straight away, didn't it, Elaine? Because we do love flowers, and we are thinking of growing even more on the plot.
Yeah, definitely.
So, we actually spoke to her a couple of weeks ago, and it was bucketing down, wasn't it? It was absolutely chucking it down, and we asked her for some recommendations of flowers that we can plant for next year.
It depends whether you're actually growing for pleasure or profit and how much time you've got. But I think I would certainly be thinking about my hardy annuals at this time of year and thinking, okay, what am I going to plant now to take me through? Either I'm going to get them out or I'm going to overwinter them under cover and get them out for the spring. So we've started that already for sure. We're starting planting our hardy annuals and we're getting them under cover, except the tunnels and the greenhouses have been very, very hot. So they're still outside on tables outside the polytunnels ready to go in. But we've done sweet peas, we're doing larkspur. We've already done some direct sowing of Orlea grandiflora. So this time of year, we would definitely be looking at our hardy annuals and getting those ready and planning, lots and lots of planning. So this week we'll have a planning meeting. That sounds really posh, doesn't it? But it's not posh. No, it's not posh at all. It's four of us sitting around over a cup of coffee. It gives us an excuse to sit inside and poring over the seed catalogues and saying, okay, what are we not going to grow next year that we grew this year, which we weren't that happy with? And even after 12 years of growing, there are still things this year that I definitely wouldn't grow again. And I think and every year I never learn. So there are some things we definitely won't grow again next year. And then we'll have a whole list, and I'll write this whole enormous list of all the flowers which I've done that I want for next year. And they'll all go, it's a bit long, Wiz, and let's plan it out. And how much space are we going to have? And I've gone, and then you think, okay, well, how many flowers do I want to grow next year? And I've said, I want to grow 300,000 is what I've said.
Wow.
And that can be a stem of grass, a stem of Media or a Maxima, or it can be a dahlia with lots of plants. But how many actual cut flower stems do I want next year? And I think the minimum is 300,000.
The amount that you're talking of growing, how many acres have you got?
I've got 5 acres, but I don't grow over 5 acres. I probably grow over about 2.5. But I read something in a magazine this week with another flower farmer in the UK, which got me thinking. They grow over an acre and they think they get 200,000 stems in an acre. Whether that's turning tulips around into dahlias, so you've got double whammy, haven't you?
Yeah.
Whether that's successional sowing of annuals, so even more double whammy. But 200,000 stems out of an acre, I thought that was quite challenging. But that's what the magazine said.
You were saying, are we growing as a commercial or just for pleasure? Well, obviously, we're on an allotment site and we're not allowed to sell our flowers. So we just grow them to give them away. Have you got any tips for us about what might be fashionable? So what's the difference? Are there certain flowers that attract a bigger premium if you were selling them? And what do you think really we should be growing just for pleasure, really?
Yeah, I think you've got to think of a bouquet, what's in it, and growing for pleasure. And I teach people to grow for pleasure. And there are probably 5 top flowers I would do, which are easy peasy. So I would grow, what would be top of my 5 list? Orlea grandiflora, that nice white fluffy filler flower that fills all the holes, amazing. Along with Ami bisnaga or Ami. But I'll call that just one because otherwise I'm going to run out. Number 2 would probably be something like a clary sage. in sort of purple, pinks and whites because it grows like wildfire. It's really productive. We've still got it now. It starts really early. It's a very long season. So something like a clary sage would be amazing. So on top of that, I would definitely go sweet rocket. I'm back to my white flowers again because it's very tall, 1.2 meters, white, fluffy, goes in everything. Brilliant. You can grow it in white or in purple. So sweet rocket, definitely. I'm thinking maybe some cornflowers, but don't do too many. They can get a bit straggly and then get a bit entwined and need a bit of support. But something like the very vibrant blue ones or the Black Knight, the sort of burgundy ones, grow some cornflowers because they're really easy. Yep. So cornflowers, how many have I had? I must have only had one. And then, and then I would grow some scabious, definitely some scabious, either the annual or the perennial. If you've got giant scabious as a perennial in a lemon colour, it grows to about 7 foot. Ooh. It's an amazing flower. Amazing. Scabious. And then I wouldn't miss some phlox. Or some phlox. Oh, and I nearly forgot China asters was the first year we grew them this year. And we grew them in that apricot colour and pinks. Beautiful colours. As soon as they're out, they need picking, really, because they go over quite quickly. But they're easy to grow. And I would recommend a China asters in that nice apricot-y kind of colour.
Have you ever grown something and bitterly regretted it? Because you see, as soon as you mentioned aster, I've got a pink purple one, and it will be put into different bouquets that we'll be doing next week. But certainly it's one of my regrets. Have you got any?
Oh, I've got loads every year. I still haven't learnt. I wouldn't grow wallflowers, those poor little wallflowers. I know they're a biennial and they're quite good and they fill a gap in June. But they're very thin. They're not very flowery. And I don't think they're worth the space in the garden. So they'd be out of my list. Probably I grew lots this year, and I don't know how this happened, of yellow chrysanths. I didn't order yellow chrysanths, and they're all bright yellow. And they're in the tunnel, and there's probably hundreds of them. And we never really use them, sell them, like them. I mean, how that happened, that's definitely on the off list.
And we're coming up, obviously, over the next few weeks into autumn, over to winter. I mean, for a lot of people, it's really depressing. There's so little colour in some gardens. What could you recommend that people grow who are listening to this thinking, yeah, I can cheer myself up. I'll grow this. I'll do that. I'll buy that, whatever it might be.
It's very difficult at this time of year, and for us too. You know, I mean, you could buy lots of plants which were, berries that got berries and things on them. And December's, honestly, I think we should just huckle down at Christmas and make lots of wreaths and make beautiful arrangements and use what we've got and forage and have berries and use lots of dried. We do a lot of drying here. So yesterday I picked 200 straw flowers, and I picked some limonium and some statice and some poppy seed heads. And that will be what I'll be taking through the winter for me.
How did you end up doing what you're doing now? Because
mad. I tend to do something and then think about how to do it afterwards. It's part of my character. But way back about, I suppose, we bought this house kind of derelict. My husband's in construction about 15 years ago, and it was very derelict. It hadn't been lived in for a number of different years. And it did take us 15 years to actually finish it, I will hasten to add. But I won't talk about a husband who works in construction, never does anything around the house. Apart from that, we had some land with it. It's got 5 acres with it. And I think my husband had grand plans of thinking, what could he do with it? I mean, that'd be lovely. And he could ride his trials bike, motorbike across it and all those sort of things. So we decided to have some pigs. We'd never had pigs before. And then came the chickens, and then came the goats. And then came this, I don't even know where I saw it, something online which said, do you want to come for a half-day cutting patch course and you can learn to have cutting flowers? I thought, that's interesting. I don't have a background in horticulture. I don't know anything about plants at this stage. I wouldn't have been able to tell you one flower to another. I wasn't brought up in that environment. We were in a new town and our gardens were very small, and it wasn't the idyllic in the countryside that you would love. So I thought, I could go on that course. I could do that. So off I trundle on this half-day course. And I do this half-day course and I think, this is quite interesting. I wonder if I can make any money out of this as my brain starts ticking. And I had 3 raised beds, which I bought from Harold Horticulture way back then, and I've still got them today. And I really didn't know what I was doing. And I threw some seeds in direct, and I did some other seeds in germination. And then I thought, I reckon I could do this. And then each year it just got bigger and bigger. And along came a polytunnel from First Tunnels. And after that came more plants and foliage and roses. And then came the team. And I was still working as a sales and marketing director at that point, thinking this is mad. And then I started running some online courses during COVID on how to have your own cutting garden and how to be a profitable flower farmer and anything to do with flowers. And that kind of took off, and that became another world. And I thought, this is another world I can get into. And so, the sales and marketing director, boots or suit or whatever you wear, definitely my cupboard's been cleared out of all of those suits and black trousers and shirts. And I won't ever return to a marketing sales director role. And I am now a fully 100%, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day flower farmer.
We're obsessed with the weather. Being allotment years, we're obsessed with the weather.
So am I.
So you must be thinking, oh God, it's raining, it's battering all my flowers, which is exactly what we're doing, yeah.
Yeah, I've got 3 apps on my phone, the rain alert and the wind alert. Yeah. It's very difficult. One stage, when we've got really hot weather and it starts to rain, I'm out doing a rain dance thinking, great, I don't have to water anywhere. And that's a big job and an expensive job. So if I don't have to do it, I just think, great, I haven't got to do it. So I get quite excited with rain. But I do worry about the cold. I worry about the frost. Is it going to come early and therefore the dahlia is going to be over? Or is it going to come like it did last winter and kill off some shrubs, which was a big thing. So I live by the weather. I absolutely live by the weather. And I love heat. I love real heat. But I think the thing we have to plan here on the farm is, it's going to rain today. We better do the stuff in the tunnels. Oh, well, we'll cut our roses down, or we'll feed our roses, or whatever we'll do. And we have sort of wet jobs and dry jobs and indoor jobs like choosing seeds, which is a nice job.
How do you keep on top of your pests?
Well, slugs are a problem for dahlias, of course, mainly. Yeah. So we use an old traditional method of beer traps. So we're using beer traps. So we let them fall in the trap and have a nice drink.
I did that with my husband.
Did it work? Did you get rid of it?
He fell in the trap. Yeah, he's still there.
And actually, they don't like cheap beer. They like nice, expensive beer. I've tried it with Tesco's own, doesn't like it. Give it a nice bit of pale ale or a Guinness, and the slugs really like it. So we use beer traps. We use nematodes on smaller areas because you need a lot of them.
Yeah.
And then we use a product called Sluggo, which is like a natural product, and that is like a pellet. And it gets rid of it, but it degrades in the environment, so it's really important to me.
Roz, can you remind us how, if anybody wants to know how to make any decorations or go online and do their thing with you, with all the flowers and magnificent things that are out there at the moment, or generally listen to your podcast, how do people get in touch with you?
So our podcast is called the Cut Flower Podcast. Then we have an online membership called the Best Bunch membership, which is everybody likes cut flowers. Everybody wants to do things in cut flowers, whether that's for profit or for fun. Come and join us over at the Best Bunch. And then we've got 2 free Facebook groups as well. So if you go on, the best place probably is to either look at the Cut Flower Podcast in the show notes and see all the places you can get us. Follow us on Instagram at Fieldgate Flowers. We love an Instagram follow.
Thanks, Roz.
Thanks very much. Take care.
Bye.
Hints and tips for shortcuts to success. The Potty Plotters Plotcast.
Elaine, autumn leaves. What are you going to do with them now? I do remember, I don't know whether we should ever mention this ever again, but I do remember you dressed as a badger, kicking some autumn leaves.
I did, yeah. I've got lots of stories about leaves, but we'd better not go into them.
So what are you going to do with the autumn leaves instead of kicking them?
Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make free mulch, and it is brilliant. Now, the other thing is, Julia, that this year I am going to be putting in new raised beds. So some things on my plot are moving, such as the fruit bushes. I'm redesigning down the right hand side of my plot. So what I will be doing as soon as the leaves start falling is I go out with my rake, rake them all up, and I put them into a black plastic bag. It's really important that it's a black plastic one, because what I want the leaves to do is to sweat, and by sweating what actually happens is they start to mulch down, they start to break up. So then it makes it a lovely mulch. Now you can, of course, bag them up, leave them on the top of your plot and leave them there for 12 months or whatever. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them into the bottom of my raised beds, so that I'll be not only bulking them out, but I'll also be adding some different structure so that the compost and the soil that goes in there will already have some earthiness to it, if that makes sense.
Well, you won't be putting the black bin bags in the bottom of your
just the leaves. Sorry about that. Yeah. Were you thinking I'm going to look like I'm growing back bin liners?
I thought, what's she talking about here? So do you make holes in the black bin bags?
You can make holes in them, yes, but what I'll be doing is I'll bring them up and they won't have time to actually melt down. But yes, if you are going to keep them on the top of your plot, whack some holes in. And what we do is, do you remember when we've had forks in them before and you said think about somebody you don't like?
Oh, yeah, that was
fun,
the nasty
side of you, Julia, isn't it?
Yeah. Another thing people can do if they want to kind of go for a more aesthetic look, I suppose, is a lot of people make open bins with chicken wire, don't they? And then they just fill that with the
I've done that at home actually. It takes forever for them to mulch down.
And what I found is the weeds get in as well, and it almost gives them a bit of a boost.
Yeah, but do you use them in your composters?
The leaves, yeah, definitely.
And the other thing is that I keep them so that when we have the first frost and it cuts the dahlias, having chopped down the dahlias, then I cover where the dahlia stalk is above the soil.
Yes.
It's a fly, and I wondered what that was that was just coming off your cauliflower at the side of me.
What's wrong?
It's all right, it's flown away now.
Oh.
No, it's okay. I wondered what it was. Anyway, what was I on about? I don't know. But anyway, hopefully somebody else was listening. So all it is that if you're going to chop down your dahlias, keep some of those leaves back, because you can then top up over where the dahlias have actually lived.
Okay.
Contact the Potty Plotters anytime on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at Potty Plotters, or email naughtycorner@pottyplotters.uk.
Well, Elaine, we've asked people in the past, and we ask them every week, don't we, to get in contact with us, and we do get them, don't we? We get emails, and we've had one from Peter Marfleet.
And he's from Windsor, and he says, "Hello ladies, I've been using netting on my cabbages, but something is completely destroying them. Would you know what has got into these? Thanks for all your help." And he sent us a photograph.
Yeah.
Now, I actually thought my eyes were going bad, because I said to you, do you remember?
Yeah.
I can't blooming see what's happened here. They've been ravaged and savaged, but what's happening? Because it looks a bit blurry. But he's taken the photograph over the netting in the wet weather.
Yeah. So it made it hard to see, but we did, actually, I don't know how we did it, but we zoomed in on them, didn't we? And had a look at them, and I'll tell you exactly what had happened. So the cabbages have split. That's all that's happened. Nothing's had them. The cabbages have naturally split. So what sometimes happens with some vegetables, carrots particularly, will have this problem. Sometimes beetroot and other root
radishes,
vegetables, things like that.
Yeah.
What has happened is we've had a period of dry, and then we've had a period of intense water, and basically there's been a massive growth spurt and they've bust their seams. So that's all that's happened. So all Peter needs to do is just take it back a little bit, and it's completely usable. So when I say take it back, take some of the outer leaves off and the centre should be fine. And the only problem with it when they do split is it can sometimes introduce moulds and diseases and things, but it should be fine if he takes it all the way back right to the core of the cabbages. So the other one looked lovely, actually.
There you go then, Peter. Hope that's answered your question.
Yeah. And Sheila's been in contact, hasn't she?
She has, and she sent us a lovely photograph of her tomatoes and says, "Hello ladies, I hope you're impressed. Cheers." We like saying cheers. Don't we?
Yeah.
And Sheila was a non-gardener, and we introduced her into gardening and growing tomatoes. So well done, Sheila, and all of your family, and hope that you are impressed by growing your own, because we certainly were.
Now, would you like to sponsor an episode of this podcast for the future? If so, all you need to do is get in touch with us.
Contact the Potty Plotters anytime on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at Potty Plotters, or email naughtycorner@pottyplotters.uk.
Fruit trees and bushes, Elaine.
Well, I'm taking mine out. Not all my trees. I'm taking the fruit bushes out because I want to introduce some new bushes, and I haven't got enough room. And mine are very long, leggy and woody. So that's what I'm going to do. And that's going to be something that I'll start in the next few weeks when I get time. And so really it's about what is it that people need to look for when they're buying new fruit bushes at this time of year?
Yeah, I remember when those fruit bushes went in of yours. And I remember one thing that you did complain about was that your husband planted them too close. And you said this is going to create a problem down the line.
I don't like to say. Told
but
you
it
so.
did, yeah. Told you so, Bill. Just I'm getting there as well. So now is the perfect time if you are looking at introducing some fruit bushes or trees into your garden, because now is the time for bare-rooted trees and bushes. And the beauty of that is they are a lot cheaper, Elaine.
So what you know, when we say these things, I know what you mean, but I'm going to ask the questions like I don't know what you mean.
Okay.
So what is a bare-rooted either bush or a tree?
So normally you'd buy your plant in a plant pot with its compost.
Yeah.
You'd buy everything there together. Bare-rooted, what happens is they'll, whether it's the nurseries, wherever, they will go into their ground, dig the plant up, and basically it will come with maybe just a little bit of soil attached to it, but all it will be is the tree with the roots and no compost, no soil around it. Usually it comes in some kind of protective covering for the roots just to keep them moist, but that is about it.
So it really is a bare-rooted tree or bush?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're cheaper obviously to deliver. You get a much, much wider choice of bare-rooted trees than you do things that are potted. And the reason is, if you can imagine it, they're kind of almost second-guessing when people are what they're going to have, and they're going to have to keep potting things on. If they're in the ground and they're already established, then they just dig them up when they've got a customer for them.
So that's a much easier process for them.
It is, and it's much, much cheaper, like I say. So it is a quick way to establish an orchard area, but also the range that you get from bare-rooted is much greater than if you get potted.
So for instance then, that I buy some new black currants.
Yeah.
When I buy them bare-rooted, what should I do when I bring them back to the plot? Put them straight in, or do I water them? What do I do?
Yeah, ideally you want to get them straight in if you can. The quicker you can get them in the ground, the better. The important thing to remember is don't be planting them when there's a frost though. Or if the area is absolutely sodden wet, so like if we had a flood problem, that particularly, leave them, put them somewhere where it's going to stay moist. So one thing you could do, if you're not ready to plant them in the place where you want them, you could dig an area on your plot or in your garden and basically heel them in, which just means that you settle them into the soil, but that's not their permanent planting hole. But if you know where you're going with them, you dig yourself a hole. And now it's not recommended that you actually put compost and manure or anything in with them, because that is almost kind of giving them a lovely feeding area, that it means that they don't want to stretch their roots any further to go out and find the nutrients to establish themselves. So you just basically dig the hole and then backfill what you're planting. And whether it's a tree, you might need to put a stake in, but all that guidance usually comes with the bare-rooted tree or fruit bush that you get.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for that, because that's what we're going to be doing very soon.
Have you got a hint and tip, Elaine?
Yes, it's all about lolly sticks. You know that a nice lolly, I do like them. Actually, I like all food really, except for peas. But, right, ice lollies. As Gareth throws his hands up in despair. And let's not start picking on people about what they like and what they don't. Because we haven't got time in this podcast to talk about what you don't like to eat, Gareth. Yeah. Right then, the next thing then is lolly sticks. The amount of times that we've been to different talks where people talk about saving their lolly sticks and use them as label markers. Why don't we like them?
Well, because A, they rot, B, whenever you write on them the ink bleeds, and C, if you use pencil they just fade and you can't see what it is, so it's a bit of a nonsense really.
So reuse the plastic ones that you've got by scrubbing them with a Brillo pad or simply chopping up a yoghurt pot. They make brilliant labels. You've done loads, haven't you?
Yeah, loads.
Let's do that then.
Okay.
Top-notch advice, no Latin included. The Potty Plotters Podcast.
Thanks again to Roz Chandler for sharing her knowledge with us. And who knows, we might even be more successful next year with ours.
I think we will.
Well, we might even move into flower farming, I think. Elaine.
Do you think?
Yeah.
You know, when Gareth hasn't got too much to do, maybe we could get him setting some raised beds.
Well, I'm thinking half the polytunnel flowers next year. I know, extravagant. Next time we'll be talking about spring and getting our bulbs out. And we're going what's the matter? You always read something into it, don't you? Anyway, and we're also going to go back to the Derby County Community Trust allotment plot.
Right.
Yeah, can you remember? Can you cast your mind back to episode 10, Elaine?
No, I just remember that it was cold and it was a bit muddy and they'd not long started on that plot when we went to meet them, yeah.
Well, that chalet, as we called it, that summer house has been upgraded. We've been invited along. In fact, we've been invited along quite often because they've needed our help. And we're going to catch up with what's going on that plot.
All right, then. Can we talk them into growing more flowers, do you think?
I think we can. I just think it's the way forward. I mean, I know you can't eat them, but I just think it's nice to give flowers away.
But you can eat some, don't you remember that you can eat dahlias? Do you
remember when you cooked them? Oh my gosh, yes, yeah. They were a bit coarse, weren't they? Do you think it was the variety?
I don't know. Maybe we ought to think black and white.
The Plotcast Podcast with the Potty Plotters is an Amberland Media production.